Long experience has taught me this about the status of mankind with regard to matters requiring thought. The less people know and understand about them, the more positively they attempt to argue concerning them, while on the other hand to know and understand a multitude of things renders men cautious in passing judgment upon anything new. I do not think it is necessary to believe that the same God who has given us our senses, reason, and intelligence wished us to abandon their use, giving us by some other means the information that we could gain through them. It seems to me that it was well said by Madame Serenissima, and insisted on by your reverence, that the Holy Scripture cannot err, and that the decrees therein contained are absolutely true and inviolable. But I should have in your place added that, though Scripture cannot err, its expounders and interpreters are liable to err in many ways, and one error in particular would be most grave and most frequent, if we always stopped short at the literal signification of the words. You cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find it within himself. Philosophy is written in that great book which ever lies before our eyes, I mean the universe, but we cannot understand it if we do not first learn the language and grasp the symbols in which it is written. The vain presumption of understanding everything can have no other basis than never having understood anything. For anyone who had ever experienced just once the perfect understanding of one single thing, and had truly tasted how knowledge is accomplished, would recognize that of the infinity of other truths he understands nothing. Knowing thyself, that is the greatest wisdom. God is known by nature in his works, and by doctrine in his revealed word. Surely, God could have caused birds to fly with their bones made of solid gold, with their veins full of quicksilver, with their flesh heavier than lead, and with their wings exceedingly small. He did not, and that ought to show something. It is only in order to shield your ignorance that you put the Lord at every turn to the refuge of a miracle. Holy Scripture could never lie or err, its decrees are of absolute and inviolable truth. In the long run my observations have convinced me that some men, reasoning preposterously, first establish some conclusion in their minds which, either because of its being their own or because of their having received it from some person who has their entire confidence, impresses them so deeply that one finds it impossible ever to get it out of their. In questions of science, the authority of 1,000 is not worth the humble reasoning of a single individual. I wish, my dear Kepler, that we could have a good laugh together at the extraordinary stupidity of the mob. What do you think of the foremost philosophers of this university? In spite of my oft-repeated efforts and invitations, they have refused, with the obstinacy of a glutted adder, to look at the planets or the moon or my glass telescope. All truths are easy to understand. Once they are discovered, the point is to discover them. There are those who reason well, but they are greatly outnumbered by those who reason badly. Oh, my dear Kepler, how I wish that we could have one hearty laugh together. Here, at Padua, is the principal professor of philosophy, whom I have repeatedly and urgently requested to look at the moon and planets through my glass telescope, which he pertinaciously refuses to do. Why are you not here? What shouts of laughter we should have at this glorious folly! And to hear the professor of philosophy at Pisa laboring before the Grand Duke with logical arguments, as if with magical incantations, to charm the new planets out of the sky. The laws of nature are written by the hand of God in the language of mathematics. The prohibition of science would be contrary to the Bible, which in hundreds of places teaches us how the greatness and the glory of God shine forth marvelously in all. You can't teach anybody anything, only make them realize. The answers are already inside them. And who can doubt that it will lead to the worst disorders when minds created free by God are compelled to submit slavishly to an outside will, when we are told to deny our senses and subject them to the whim of others, When people devoid of whatsoever competence are made judges over experts and are granted authority to treat them as they please. These are the novelties which are apt to bring about the ruin of commonwealths and the subversion of the state. Mathematics is the key and door to the sciences. Nothing occurs contrary to nature, except the impossible, and that never occurs. To understand the universe, you must understand the language in which it's written, the language of mathematics. If you could see the earth illuminated, when you were in a place as dark as night, it would look to you more splendid than the moon. You may force me to say what you wish, you may revile me for saying what I do, but it moves. I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God, who has endowed us with sense and reason, and intellect has intended us to forego their use. See now the power of truth. The same experiment which at first glance seemed to show one thing, when more carefully examined, assures us of the contrary. Nature is relentless and unchangeable, and it is indifferent as to whether its hidden reasons and actions are understandable to man or not. I have never met a man so ignorant that I couldn't learn something from him. It is a beautiful and delightful sight to behold the body of the moon. The sun, with all those planets revolving around it and dependent on it, can still ripen a bunch of grapes as if it had nothing else in the universe to do. Scripture is a book about going to heaven. It's not a book about how the heavens go. Wine is sunlight, held together by water. Where the senses fail us, reason must step in. Passion is the genesis of genius.